All the time. Overreaction Monday continuing now. Pete Carroll saying today that Colin Kaepernick and Robert Griffin III are among the backup quarterback options that the Seahawks are exploring. This is what he said on 710 ESPN Radio in Seattle. Quote, "We are looking at everybody. We really are. We've been tracking everything that's going on, and we've got cap and roster issues and stuff like that we're still trying to manage properly. But quite frankly, yes, we are looking at those guys." Close quote. Again, that is Pete Carroll speaking on Robert Griffin III and Colin Kaepernick. Welcome back to the Verizon Film Room. Overreaction Monday Part 2. So you heard Pete Carroll say it. We'll put it out there. The Seahawks will sign either Colin Kaepernick or Robert Griffin III. Herm, overreaction or not an overreaction?
Not an overreaction, and I think both fit their system. This is a quarterback-friendly system as far as moving the pocket. And those guys, along with Russell Wilson, are guys that don't want to necessarily stay in the pocket and have to throw it 30 times. This is a quarterback-friendly offense. In other words, they will move it for them, let them use their legs, they boot, waggle. There's all sorts of things that these quarterbacks have to do, a lot with their legs. So you're talking about two other guys that have that same attribute that Russell Wilson has. Yeah. And by the way, Colin Kaepernick has played in this division, so that's kind of, he might have an up on Robert Griffin.
He might have a leg up. All right. Bill, overreaction or not an overreaction?
Not. I believe they'll sign one of the two.
Yeah.
I would think that the edge belongs to Cap for all the reasons that Herm stated, plus the fact that he's healthy and RG has a long history of injury. But Cap's going to have to get his cap situation in mind.
The cap number's way too high.
The cap number's way too high in terms of what he's asking for. So he's got to come down to backup level and understand that he has to be a backup and that he's got to be a good teammate and swallow a little humble pie at this point in time.
Okay, but to the point of being a good teammate, though, this is a guy who's traded barbs both on the field and in the media with current Seahawks. Yes. Richard Sherman jumps off the page in my mind. How does he fit within that locker room?
Fantastic. This locker room is really comprised of personalities. Yeah. Pete can handle those personalities. Look, these guys get after each other during the game.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, but this is how they function. You know, sometimes when you look at other people's organizations, you say, how can they function like that? Yeah. That is normal for the Seahawks. They're okay. They win a lot of games that way. They'll be fine.
Okay, Bill, same question, but about Robert Griffin III. T-shirts, slogans, hashtags, all that good stuff for Griffin, but he hasn't been able to stay on the field.
No, that's the problem. His problem is injury. Everybody fits into Pete's locker room. I mean, it really is. Nobody else in football could handle those kinds of disparate personalities but Pete, and he does a phenomenal job of it. But in terms of RG, who I really like, and I think he's a heck of a player when he's healthy, there's no history of health here, and that's the problem. The most important ability is availability.
Coach. Hey, Coach, let me ask you a question. These Seattle Seahawks, back in there, he don't know this. He's a Raider fan. This was the 80 Raiders.
Of course it is. Yes.
The Seattle Seahawks, the 80 Raiders, the 70 Raiders, the guys I used to play against.
That's exactly right.
Bunch of personalities.
You're saying I don't know.
A lot. No, I'm just saying.
Okay.
That's your Raiders.
Yeah.
You go back in the 70s and the 80s and the 60s.
Right.
A bunch of personalities.
We were in the same division with these Seahawks. They were AFC West when I was coming.
I walked in the Raiders locker room on the off-season one day with Lester Hayes, and I walked in and I said, I was in pro football. I said, what is this? I said, where am I? It's our locker room, Herm. I said, oh, it's a little bit different.